Hey, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time at all, you're going to know that I'm a bow hunter first and an archer second. That's why when my friends get a hold of me and say, I want to pick up a stick bow, or I get messages on social media, I always tell them the same thing. Don't ask me. I'm not the guy to ask. You need a coach. Well, not everybody has a coach available, right? You might not even have a local club where you can go and rub elbows and get tips from folks. But enter our friends over at The Push. Now, Matt and Tim have put together what they call the PAC, the Push Archery Center of Knowledge. What that is online courses to help you, whether you're brand new or you've been doing it for 35 years. There's something for everyone. Now I partake in Tom Clum's Solid Archery Mechanics, but they also have Roots by Rod Jenkins and Jimmy Blackman and Joel Turner's Controlled Process Shooting. Now, when you get one of these courses, you got it for life. They continually add content. You go on there, there's different modules to help you work on whatever you need, but there's also a forum that you jump on there and you can chat with other students, but also the coach themselves. So talk about having a coach at the tip of your fingers. The PAC has got it. So if you're interested in getting started or interested in getting better, run on over to www.thepusharchery.com/PAC. You're not going to be sorry, but you better get after it because season's coming soon. Everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by the Blackwidow Bow Company. I got my good buddy B Lake. What's up, Blake?
What's up, man? This week's episode might be a little bit of a downer for people, but it's just going to be me and Rob. So.
I know it. Yep. So maybe the highlight was just the intro right there, and it's all downhill for here.
Yeah. No, I think we've been needing to do one of these a while. Just you and I kind of BSing back and forth. And I don't know. We'll just kind of see where it goes. We don't really have anything on the agenda necessarily.
Yeah, I was just on Instagram there chatting with some people. And so, we're kind of running ragged these last 10 days after getting back from Texas. And, we got a couple episodes out. And it's like, you know what? Time out. Let's just chew the fat.
Seems like we've been super busy here lately. Hadn't had a whole lot of time to sit down and tap the brakes, but no, I think we'll dive into I think both of us are kind of changing up our setups a little bit going into next year and talk about that and see where that leads us.
Yeah, just before we get rolling, I want to thank the sponsors bringing this content to you all the time, every week. The Kifaru International, Selway Archery, the Footed Shaft, Backwoods Grind Coffee Company, and Blackwidow Bows. There you have it. Those are the guys that keep this coming at you. Thank them. Not us.
Yeah, go give them a visit or two.
That we just had to scrub a take there, and it's because I'm hopped up at 2 p.m. on coffee.
That's okay.
It's not beer. He's giving me the sign like I'm drinking. I'm like, no, dude, I'm all caffeinated.
Oh, that's funny. I just had me a Red Bull, so.
Oh, you got wings.
I wish.
Oh, look at the sweatshirts, though. We're twinsies.
If I'd tell you, if I had wings, I'd fly south because this weather's for the birds.
How much souther do you need to go?
Pretty good ways because the whole state of Texas, I think, is in panic mode right now.
Cameron Hale was messaging me, telling me to come back down there and grab the cold that I left and bring it home with me.
Man, it's supposed to get pretty crazy. And they're saying 14 inches of snow. I don't know that that'll happen. I've never seen more than, probably 6 in my whole life. But I mean, the difference between getting 6 inches down here and getting 6 inches up there is, it's a huge difference just because our infrastructure is not there to deal with it. obviously a city or county or whatever is not going to go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get equipment to deal with something that happens once every 5 or 6 years. But I mean, usually probably once a year, we'll get a couple little skiffs here and there, but nothing that we can't deal with. But yeah, supposed to be a low of -3 tomorrow here.
No kidding.
And yeah, that's
man,
no
I'll
joke
tell you
either.
what, my sympathy goes out to all the plumbers because,
we're not equipped for that either.
I'll tell you what, they're fixing to pay for their a brand new pickup truck here in the next few weeks. It'll be a lot of busted pipes.
Yeah, it's I've been trying to leave my faucets dripping and stuff just because it's been below freezing for, I mean, gosh, like almost a week now. It hadn't got above freezing, and you start talking about having below freezing temperatures for a couple weeks in a row down here, and it can start causing some pretty serious problems. The other night I was doing a job down in Arlington between Fort Worth and Dallas, and they had to come in and bring a hot oiler truck and heat all the water for us. So our valves on our trucks and stuff wouldn't
really,
start freezing up. Yeah.
It's funny. I was doing years ago. I don't know how we're getting sidetracked here, but years ago, I was doing hotels, plumbing hotels, and then we're doing the ground rough. One week I was in, coast of Oregon, and the plans called for the water main to be buried like 2 feet. It was something like I wasn't used to. It was like really shallow. It was a 4-inch main. The next week I was in Belgrade, Montana. That same water main was buried 12 feet. So I got to imagine you guys are going to have water mains freezing even.
I would think so. I don't know that I've never seen a cold snap this bad. Or if I have, it's been a long, long time. But I think somebody had told me that back in like 82 or 83, we had like 50 something days in a row below where it didn't get above freezing, just something crazy.
Really?
And yeah. And, well, the thing is, what's actually been nice is it's been super cold. I think it's 19 degrees outside here right now, but, the wind's not blowing very much. So it's actually somewhat bearable. And that's probably saved us a little bit, but yeah, it's supposed to be a low of -3 tomorrow and a high of 9.
Dang, buddy.
With snow most of the day. So
that's the real deal.
Yeah. So everybody thinks we wear shorts and flip-flops here around down here. You might wear shorts and hell, we were talking and it was 70 something degrees.
You got to go right to the shorts. Like you got to go right to the shorts.
You're not allowed to wear shorts down here. No matter the temperature. But no, I was wanting to go hunting, but I mean, and this is something we could talk about a little bit. I've talked to other people who kind of struggle with the same thing. Whenever it gets really cold and I have to wear a lot of bulky clothing, I have issues shooting because my string will catch, my clothes on my chest. And, I've been wanting to get out and go hunt. I can hunt until the end of February. And I just can't shoot my stickbow whenever it's this cold because of the amount of clothes I have to put on.
What about
those? I'm still trying to.
What about that chest protector? I don't know what you call it. You see those Olympic shooters wear them. You ever try something like that?
No, I haven't. That's actually something that I do want to try is to something to just and actually I got to where I kind of try and use my bino harness some to compress that down.
I figured it out, bro. Figured it out.
What's up?
You need to put a sports bra on the outside. That would look wicked awesome in trophy grip and grins.
You know what? An extra large sports bra. It'd probably work. That's the sad part. It'd probably work great.
Freaking look at me, just full of good ideas.
The innovator. Oh no, I don't think I could make myself do that.
Oh, really? Well, I got a story for you sometime off air.
Oh no, tell it on.
No. It's disturbing. I had to seek counseling for months afterwards.
But anyway, if it can ever warm up a little bit, I'm planning on doing a little bit more.
So now it's hunting. How far past the rut is it over there, down there?
Oh, it's long gone.
Yeah.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3 months, basically.
Really? So
3
like,
months. All of the deer are in eat mode right now.
Yeah, but
especially with these cold temps, I'm sure.
When we were down there, those deer were out of the rut by 3 weeks?
Yeah, so out there, that's a little bit different ball game that far west. And I'm not sure exactly what areas are this way. I know a lot of southern New Mexico, southern Arizona, and those areas the deer rut in January. So not here though. It's middle of November, just standard rut timing. And then it's weird. You go down to like, I think in Alabama, there's places where they rut in like January, February. It's kind of strange.
So then you're hunting food sources then this time of year because deer are just trying to pack it on.
Yeah, and especially, honestly, right now with these cold temps, I'm sure our food plots and stuff are getting freaking waylaid.
Yeah.
So it'd probably be a great time to go, but in the past when it's gotten this cold, I just take my compound. It's just easier to shoot because of the string angle more than anything. Yeah. But I'm not too fired up about shooting something with a compound. So
maybe we should look at coming out with some apparel, some Stickbow Chronicle sports bras.
You bet. For moobs.
And the like. So many moobs and the like. Yeah, that'd be tough with all this time and all this season to not be getting out there. Shoot, you got some fun stuff to be doing. Only thing I got going on is like I wanted to get out last week and my plate was pretty full. I thought I was going to get out on Tuesday or Wednesday. I want to go cut tracks and predator call some lions, but now the ground's so frozen. You're not going to see tracks at all, but it's supposed to break on Monday. And actually it's like 20 right now, which is warm. It's supposed to break and maybe get a little snow on Monday, and I got a few days off. So between that big monster amount of podcasts, like 5 and 4 days that we've got scheduled, hopefully get out and cut a fresh cat track.
Yeah, you almost screwed around and got one shot while you were down here.
I was actually
did you know?
I was actually talking to somebody today about that. And, that was super cool. Yeah, and Aaron says, "This is Texas. You can shoot anything." Like, wow, this is cool.
Almost anything.
I like Texas.
What's the humidity up there right now? What is the general?
It's coming up. It's coming up right now. It's 40. This morning was 42%. We got some cloud cover and the temperature's starting to come up because of it. But it was getting down. It was down to like 20%. We had like super big winds. Like it's been sustaining at like 15 to 18 miles an hour for 2 days. That north wind, clear skies, just sucking all the moisture right out of here.
Yeah. So right now here it's 50% humidity, which actually for here is pretty low. So it's not been too crazy unbearable yet, but I'm looking at the forecast now, and tomorrow the high is 16, the low is 2. Monday, the high is 13, the low is -3. Tuesday, 19, 14. 25, 16, 27, 10. And then finally Friday, it gets up to 37.
Well, I'll tell you, you're going to learn a whole new appreciation for being on stand and then drawing what do you shoot, 60 pounds? You try to draw a bow after being on stand for a couple hours and that kind of temperature, and stuff don't work like it's supposed to, meaning your body. No. Not the limbs, your body.
Whenever it's cold like that, I'll try and stand up about every 20 or 30 minutes. And as long as I don't have anything around, it hadn't screwed me yet, but as long as I don't think anything's around, I'll stand up every 20 or 30 minutes and draw my bow back just to try and stay somewhat warm. And I also took a page out of Aaron's book and started using those patches. the like hand warmer patches you can put on like your shoulders and your back. And that seems to help a ton.
We're going to probably need to change subjects right here because it just dawned on me that, we have thousands of people listening in Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota right now going, oh, wah.
Yeah, that's no joke.
So what kind of arrows are you going to be shooting?
So we'll pull an e-brake here.
Yeah.
I have been, and anybody who pays any attention to the crap that comes out of my mouth knows that I've been a huge 204 ID arrow guy with iron wheel components, and even before the iron wheel components, shooting them with just a brass hit insert with an aluminum footer, or there's a couple of companies that actually made some collars similar to what Bill does. They were aluminum, so they weren't as durable as Bill's stuff, but I've been a huge proponent of that system for, I don't know, I've been shooting Easton Axis for, I don't know, 10 years or more probably. And the big thing for me with that system is it is very concentric. So it's very simple to, you're not going to have any problems getting your broadheads to spin and have everything straight. As long as you don't screw anything up too bad. It's pretty lick and stick. And since I've started using the Kimsha hot melt and just gluing it all in, that's made it even simpler. I mean, it's just been stupid simple. But I've played with micros some on and off the last few years, and there's a lot of things that I really like about micros. One of them is just being better in the wind. It's not really arguable. I think they do better in the wind. And I do think that they may penetrate a little bit better. And I don't really have any scientific, I'm sure Cody Greenwood could probably give it to you if you needed it, but my testing goes as far as just shooting into my target in the backyard. And it just seems like those things hit harder and go deeper into the target on average. So there's a lot of things that I really like about micro diameter shafts, but the components is the big downside for me specifically. A lot of the components out there are either not structurally very, very sound, or they're not very concentric. So in other words, it's hard to, it's kind of a pain to get stuff to spin true sometimes. You got to put the outsert on and spin it on an arrow spinner, and then maybe turn the outsert a little bit. And it can just be kind of a pain. Whereas with the Axis and a footer or a 204 ID shaft, I've actually been shooting the Rampages now and like those so far. But with a 204 ID shaft with the hit system and a footer, I think you're getting kind of everything you need there as far as concentricity and durability. It's very, very simple. I never have issues getting things to spin. But having said all that, the pros of the micros have always kept me curious in them. And there's some components coming down the pipe that I'm going to try out. I can't talk about them or anything like that, but it's hopefully going to fix all the issues I've had with micro diameter components and all the benefits of.
You can't say anything about them?
No.
Nothing. Nothing. Zip.
No, I've been sworn to secrecy.
Come on.
And I haven't got my hands on them yet. I think Aaron's got some of them. I should be getting some hopefully here pretty quick to start testing. And I am legitimately very, very, very excited to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say something that.
So I'm going to go to a deep impact, probably a 350 spine deep impact with these prototype components on the front. And then, I'll probably end up in that 250 275 up front range, more than likely.
Really?
And then,
so what an overall arrow weight? What are you looking at?
I would imagine probably right around 600 grains. It's going to be somewhere in there.
Gosh, see,
depending on how the length of the arrow. Those deep impacts are what I think a 350's 10 grains an inch, right?
Are they that much? I was sure. I forget what they are. I've got.
They're pretty heavy. And now I will say this: if I have to drop down to a 300, or if that 350 tune's pretty long and it's just a little heavier than I like, then I'll probably go to an X impact instead of a deep impact, which is a little bit lighter grains per inch shaft. It's still a micro shaft, but it's a little bit lighter. Try those.
Before I was introduced to all you nerds that are all nerding out in this, like all these components, I've always, every off season, loved messing with arrows. It's just something that I enjoy, whether it was, my days of messing with wood arrows or whatever. I was always tweaking, and it's just that I enjoy it. So with that said, I was looking at just going the opposite direction because I was shooting the deep impact. Yeah, the deep impacts. And I like the micro diameters. Now, nothing against the arrow manufacturer at all, but the knock end, I had like horrible trouble splitting those knock ends. And it's just because like I stump shoot a lot. So I was looking at going back to Easton Axis, and I'd shot Easton Axis for years and years and years. Epoxying, an inch of aluminum arrow on the ends, and they were damn near indestructible. So I was a little bit frustrated. I'm just like, man, I'm just going back to what I shot. Now,
this is the same thing that I've gone through with the vanes and the feathers thing.
Really?
Not to cut you off. I love shooting vanes for pretty much every reason. The main benefit for me, I don't hunt in a lot of wet country where I've got to worry about my feathers getting matted down, do maybe one backpack hunt a year, two backpack hunts a year. But the main benefit for me with vanes over feathers, and I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, you're good.
While this is kind of fresh in my head, the main benefit with me for vanes is they are so much quieter in flight. Like it's not even, it's extremely noticeable the first time you shoot vanes, and not just trad vanes. I mean, any kind of vane, if you're shooting an elevated rest or whatever, it is a huge deal. And hunting whitetails, in my opinion, if you're type guy who may take a 30-yard shot on a whitetail, I think that arrow noise is a huge factor, especially out of a stickbow. And
well,
go ahead.
I'll just to pile on to that. That was really, really an eye opener for me. But also, how many times do we struggle with vented heads whistling, right? And it's for the same reason. So, those vanes are quiet. The same reason we don't generally like vented heads. Yeah.
And actually, I've shot iron will far before I knew Bill. And originally, and hopefully he doesn't get mad at me for saying this, originally all he had was vented heads. And I shot at the biggest whitetail I've ever seen on the hoof. And I think that thing sounded like it. I mean, it's loud. I mean, there's no way around it. I think there's some benefits potentially to vented heads, but noise is a huge, huge drawback. And I thought that, when I first started shooting those his vented heads, that I had found the broadhead that I was always looking for. And then the arrow noise thing tripped me up, and I was like, man, I really hate to quit shooting these things because I love everything about them, but man, I just can't deal with the noise. And then it wasn't long after that he came out with the solids, and I was like, hallelujah, because that was a big deal to me, and it still is. But having said all that, I've been in a little bit of a pickle lately shooting vanes, and the reason is I use from the very second I picked up a stick bow, it was very intuitive to me to put my middle finger in the corner of my mouth and put the feather right on the tip of my nose. So I shot shield cut feathers right from the beginning, and that shield cut feather just sits right on the tip of my nose, and it is I mean, rock solid of an anchor as I can get. And I got very used to having that. Well, when the trad vanes came out, I was like, man, I got to try these things. Well, the only downside for me personally to the trad vanes is I can't feel those things on my face. They're so soft. And I shot them for a while, and I just had some inconsistencies with my left and rights mainly, which is something I've never had an issue with shooting feathers. And I think it's just because my anchor, it kind of floats in and out away from my face. And with feathers, I don't have that issue. I just stick the feather on the end of my nose, and it's super consistent. So I guess this is a long-winded way of saying that until I can kind of figure out vanes or an option to get that consistent of an anchor with vanes, I'm going back to probably 3-inch feathers until then, because it's like as soon as it's just very strange. As soon as I stick feathers on my arrows, it's like my left and right issues are gone. Like I could shoot at a telephone pole at 100 yards and just right down the center of it.
So you're shooting were you shooting trad vanes, 3-inch trad vanes?
I was shooting 3x4-inch or 4x3-inch trad vanes. So I was shooting 4 3-inch trad vanes, which I loved.
Yeah.
And you're shooting plenty of steering.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're shooting a wide broadhead.
Oh yeah,
man, what a change from the way I thought 4 years ago.
Oh, I mean, same with me. Whenever I started into all this, I shot 3 5-inch feathers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just thought that's what I needed. And, even before Trad Lab, Cody came out with all his findings on his vane study or feather length study and all that, as I kept shooting, I just kind of graduated into using smaller and smaller feathers until I was running 4 3-inch feathers. Now, the only reason I'm going to 3 3-inch feathers now is because if I'm going to go back to feathers, I want as little feather on the back of that arrow as I can get away with, just because it's less noise. Less feather you got, the less noise it is.
Interesting.
So that's what I'm going to go to now. And it's just, for me, it's a night and day difference in my shooting when I've got that feather to stick right on the tip of my nose. It is very, very consistent for me.
One thing, you talk like for me, 4 or 5 years ago, it was, 4-inch feathers were a leap, right? Everybody used 5-inch feathers. I don't think the majority of trad guys tuned their arrows. Now I did. I've always bare shafted and threw paper because I was always concerned with, hey, if my feathers get wet and mat down, because it's very common here, I wanted to know that shaft was flying good. But yeah, that opens a whole nother window of vane size, and that's interesting.
No, and one issue I had with feathers, I was shooting, like cheap gateways. That's pretty much the only thing I could find.
It's nothing against this is not a plug for anything, but like gateway feathers, to me, I'm sorry, them things suck.
No, the consistency from feather to feather is horrible.
I'm telling you, that is my personal experience with them. It's, holy crap. I had tried gateway feathers several times, and it was like they were buying True Flight's seconds.
Yeah, and I had fairly good luck with True Flights, but I will say I got feathers from Wild Fletching. Guy's name is Josh. I can't remember. I can't even pronounce his last name. But he's on Instagram. It's Wild Fletching, and they're pretty pricey, but they're real wild turkey feathers. So, and they may not be quite as good as far as waterproofing goes as like a vane, but they do work a lot better than traditional feathers in the the wet conditions and stuff. And I will say they are extremely consistent. Like the quills are all perfect, and they're just a extremely high quality feathers. So anybody who does shoot feathers may go check them out. He makes some great feathers.
Yeah, I've been seeing him on Instagram. They have no knowledge of, firsthand knowledge, but when you grab, I messed around with my own, grinding and all that at turkey feathers, and I fletched them up. It was fun to do with the kid. But I think that the natural turkey feathers are probably quieter in flight. They're just so much, stiffer, and could just be me.
I was going to say that, but I haven't shot them next to like a gateway yet, but they do seem quieter than like a gateway feather for whatever reason. I didn't know if there was anything to it, but now that you say that, it seems like I've noticed that as well, that they're not as quiet as a vane, but they are quieter than just traditional farm raised turkey feathers.
No, I don't. Like I said, I got no firsthand knowledge, but that guy looks like he does a great job, and people have been raving about
and they're beautiful feathers too. And if you're one of those guys who likes making really pretty arrows, they're good looking feathers. He does a good job dyeing them. And anyway, so shameless plug for him. I got some feathers from him, and I've really enjoyed those things. The quills and stuff are super, super consistent on them, which is really nice.
Can I get back to my story now?
Yep, go.
So
sorry.
No, you're good, man. It's all good. So, I was going back to 204, and I did kind of jump ahead because I got some Eastons now, but I got some Rampage 350s, and I was shooting. I swear I was shooting 225. I got to go back and check out my deep impacts, but I thought I was shooting 225s up front, so. I loaded the Rampage up, those 350s, and number one, I should have done my homework. Those shafts are too light for an overall weight for me, what I was trying to get, and I cut them buggers down. I like about a 30.5-inch arrow, 30 3/8, somewhere there, but they were showing weak. I could not get the weak out of them. So frustrated, I just went into my shop, grabbed a 300. Basically the same length. I think it was the same length, and pretty much shot a bullet hole. So I'm not sure what the heck was going on there, but I needed to shoot league. A bunch of guys showing up and shooting Friday night. So I went down and got half a dozen Easton Access 300s, 225 up front, and shooting like a dream. But overall, so like the Rampage was a little lighter than I wanted. I don't think I was breaking 500. I don't think I was. Yeah, I think it was like 480.
That's just too light for me too. So
yeah,
with like all there.
Yeah, and I'm not a slave to FOC at all, but I'm curious. And at like 14%, I was like, nah, this just ain't right for me. So I mixed up those those 300s, and I actually fletched them with feathers that I had, because it's not going to be my go-to arrow come April. But, yeah, those things are heavy, man. So it ended up being, I think like 18% FOC and then 580s or something like that. And that's a little bit heavier than I want to be. I don't consider myself a geek on this stuff, but it didn't really fit in the window that I want to be in April. So I still got some work to do. Looking forward to, so I was trying to create what I'm going to get from Iron Will. I really want to shoot those outserts because, epoxying those aluminum shafts worked so good for me for so many years that I'd love to have something that I don't have to, mess with as much and glue them on. So it's still a work in progress. I've got 6 arrows that I shot really bad last night at League, but there I sit with Access right now, 300s.
Well, what was the score? And I'm just bringing this up because of I think there's been a couple people give you a hard time over the javelina video. What score did you shoot the other night on your one spot at indoor league? It's like 240 or something like that.
238. 238 before I left. Yeah.
Okay, and that's like, and this is, don't take this as like a dig at instinctive shooting or anything like that, but that's a very respectable score with a mid 50s pound bow, shooting split finger instinctive. And I don't know, I know you wouldn't toot your own horn, but I wanted to kind of point that out, that if you haven't shot with Aaron Snyder videoing over your shoulder,
maybe that's what I should have had. I wasn't practicing right. No, I appreciate that, but I'll tell you, that's not. I didn't win that night. I got beat by an 80-year-old.
That's the guy you posted on our Instagram, right?
Yeah. So I shot a 238 that night. I think he shot a 246 or 247. And then, anyways, I was looking at his scores last night, and man, that guy still climbs. So no, I appreciate you, pointing that out, but, yeah, sometimes we get rattled.
I just wanted to make sure that, because there's been a couple chuckleheads chime in and want to throw some shade, and it's that's
all right.
I won't dive too deep down into that, but
no, it's all good.
Anyway, I
was mentioning, I think I was telling you earlier, and I actually posted something on the Instagram today. Now, in 2017 or 16 or 17, I did Train to Hunt. It was a freaking blast. I had so much fun. But I met this dude, Andrew Eller, and I think he's like 6 foot 16 inches or something. He's in a whole nother stratosphere up there. He was shooting a compound at the time, and I ran into him at the range before we went on that oddhead hunt. And he had a stick bow. I'm like, dude, you shooting a stick bow? He's like, yeah, he'd less than a year. He's been doing the push solid archery mechanics course, and dude was shooting lights out. I shot again with him last night, and frick, man, it's awesome. He is having a blast. But I got to tell you, I forget exactly what he said his draw length was, but it's like 31 and a half. And he's shooting a 66-inch bow, and the power stroke on that damn thing is unbelievable. But man,
that sounds just like my buddy Cameron that I hunt with.
Really?
He's 6'6" and has he's 6'6", has a 32-inch draw and shoots a 54, 55 pound 66-inch bow with like a 700 grain arrow. And you want to talk about going from asshole to appetite on a rhinoceros. I watched him one night. It's actually when we were hunting with Cody and Bill. He shot a sow at like I can't remember. It's like 32 or 33 yards, and she was walking. And he cut, and it was a big sow, probably 175 pounds or so. And he cut both of her front leg bones in half.
Oh my gosh!
And while she was walking, and this was in like a 15, 20 mile an hour crosswind. And it's just those long draw guys. And I will say this, I was about to say those long draw guys don't know how lucky they are, but on the flip side of that, you don't know how unlucky they are finding arrows that will not only be long enough, but stiff enough. Cameron has had all kinds of hell getting arrows to tune, but no, it's funny you say that, because it sounds just like Cameron's setup, and the power stroke is very, very impressive.
and the bow's quiet. I think he's shooting a Dawes, whatever. I don't really know all that crap, other than I hang my bow next to him and I saw that it said Dawes, so I don't know what the hell he's shooting. But just hearing the arrow or just hearing the bow go off is just like so much longer than any other sound in the range. It's funnier than hell. But again, here's a dude that was a compound guy that through, all of us that shoot recurves, they're just having fun. And I run into him a couple years later. I see him once in a while, but I run into him a couple years later, and here he is shooting a stick bow, and he is freaking wild-eyed, and he's having a blast.
Yeah, and I mean, the ease of entry has gotten a lot easier in the last 4 or 5 years. You mentioned the solid archer mechanics thing with the push guys, and that's a pretty invaluable resource. I know just having some of the resources that we've got today was huge for me to, within a couple, 3 months. I mean, I was, I've said it before, I don't know that I've shot as well since as I was 2 to 3 months into shooting a stick bow. Yeah. It's just pretty incredible with with good solid direction and, what you can attain right out of the gate.
What, going back to Cameron, what broadhead, it's not that bears are like heavy bone, but that's damned impressive.
Oh, no, this is a pig. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was, gotcha. You said sow. We don't have pigs in North Idaho.
Pig. Sorry. Down here, sow is pig. Speaking of bears though, that's rolling around here pretty quick. And, I'm kind of curious we were kind of talking the other day about, how you set up your bait stations. My girlfriend's dad, he's got some property up in eastern Oklahoma that I'm sure there's bears in the area. And was talking to him the other day, and I think he would at least be excited to go up there and throw a bait out and see if we can get pictures of any on it. And I was kind of quizzing you on that, kind of how to go about it.
Yeah, I am by no means an expert, at all. But bears, they live and die by their nose. And that initial call scent, what I was telling you, like, getting to a place where that, those thermals or the natural prevailing winds are going to carry that scent. And there's some great companies. I always screw them up. There's two of them that, Batum 907 and Boar Masters. I have to look up and see what I buy every year. I don't remember, but companies like that make these super concentrated scents, like anise and caramel and all that stuff. So opening up a bait station is all, to me, again, I'm no expert, but to me is all about getting a big, heavy, strong scent out there that in
the right places.
Yeah. You know what? Their noses are so good though. In the wrong places, if they're hungry, they'll even come. But the good thing about this spot is I think that it's on top of a ridge. So bears are pretty nocturnal, aren't they? Yeah. So, I mean, as a whole, yes. But when they're hungry, our spring bears, them suckers are moving continually.
Well, the only reason I mentioned that is you talk about the thermals, and I would think being on top of that ridge, that would be a good thing, because at night, when maybe they might be most active, those thermals dragging down that ridge. Well,
not knowing the terrain and stuff for me where I'm at, when I open a bait up in these particular areas that I hunt, those drainages are someplace they're going to be in the daytime, and they're also moving up and out in the evenings, because they're a southern exposure, and they got early grass. So, even prevailing winds, I mean, their noses, I think I'm going to talk out of my ass again. I think their noses are the best there is as far as game animals. They live and die by their nose. So if it's out there, they're going to smell it and they're going to show up. So
I'll be excited to get with them and maybe run up there and get the bear season in Oklahoma is not until I think October. So it's kind of different from everywhere else.
Yeah. You're looking at different food sources and stuff. I mean, that's something I don't know anything about. What I do is pretty basic stuff up here. They come out of hibernation, they get their plug squared away as far as green grass. It's prior to the huckleberries, and they're pretty easy. I just bait with grain. I mean, if I'm I'm going to eat what I'm shooting. I don't really, as much as I like donuts and bread, I don't really eat it. So if I'm going to eat something, I don't want to feed it junk. So I generally use a good three-way grain, such as if one was so inclined to make whiskey or moonshine, if that was legal, it's kind of the same stuff. It's a three-way omeline with molasses.
Okay, I know, like a sweet feed type thing.
Exactly. It's expensive, man. It gets expensive.
I saw Clay I've been watching a bunch of Clay Newcomb stuff here in the last week or so, and he killed that. And I thought it was like a 450-pound bear. It was a 550-pound bear in eastern Oklahoma a couple of years ago. And he was using pretty much just bread and corn. But he was also, you were telling me about the cooking oil and getting it so that they get that on their pads, which is not something I would have ever thought about. But he had some concentrate stuff that you mix in with the cooking oil and put it on the food, I guess. Yeah. Pour it on the ground in front of the barrel. And anyway, no, I thought it's very interesting because I like I said, I don't know anything about it. I think it'd be cool to, even if we don't ever go up there and hunt, to go up there and set up a bait and see if we can get some pictures of some bears.
Yeah, and I'm not a big game camera guy, and that's something we can talk about too. I guess some states are in big. That'd be fun to talk about
right now.
But before we get going on that, I'll tell you, well, my boy was, when I started baiting, and the reason I started baiting was because my work schedule and my vacation schedule, it looked like I would never get to hunt a September again. So, we got to provide for our families first, right? But with the thought of never hunting elk again, like I used to for a week or two at a time, I just had to switch the mindset. Like, you know what? I'm going to be hunting in May and June. So that's kind of how I started bear baiting. But my boy was probably 5 or 6 when I started. And, I just started with one bait, and that bait never really produced. I got little bears and sows on it. But holy smokes, every couple days taking your boy up there and looking at a trail camera and packing feed in and looking at sign and all of that stuff, digging in bear poop. I mean, that was golden times with my son. He absolutely loved it. And I'll tell you another thing is it was kind of not you could say conditioning. Like, bears are not big, scary things, bud. We're going into a bear bait. So it wasn't like to this day, he's not scared of bears. He respects them, but he's been around them enough that, he knows, you got to keep your head on a swivel. You're just not scary. You just got to respect them.
Yeah, no, I have very, and I don't know if you want to dive into this right now. I have very mixed feelings about trail cameras, and we've talked about it briefly before.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, I might as well. So right now there's a big thing going on in Arizona and as well in Utah. And there's some places in Arizona where, and I'm talking about all this based off pretty much zero experience. I've just heard other people talk about it. There's places in Arizona where you can go out to a water tank and there might be freaking 20 or 25 trail cameras on it. And, that to me is an issue. Like the Arizona Strip, for example, if I was to draw an Arizona Strip tag this year, arguably the best mule deer tag in the country, I would, number one, I'd hire a guide or an outfitter. And the first thing I would probably tell the guide or the outfitter is I have zero interest in combat bow hunting.
Yeah.
So if you've got, I don't care if you've got $240, $250 on camera or whatever, take me somewhere where I can go hunt a really nice buck by myself. I have no interest in jacking with a bunch of other people. That's not the experience I'm here for. Would it be awesome to shoot a 240 or 250 buck? You bet it would. I would rather shoot a 195 buck by myself. That's just me. I don't have any interest in that kind of experience. So the trail cameras out there, I think in certain areas are an issue. But with that being said, like in Utah right now, I know that there's some guys that hunt harder than just about anybody else I know that may run 20 or 30 trail cameras, and they are looking for, and I'm curious what you think about this, Rob. So my downsides to trail cameras are there's times when it feels like it takes the fun out of it. For me, I've said before, growing up, we didn't run trail cameras, or when we did, it was like those cam trackers that you put the roll of film in, you get like 35 pictures off the thing. You got to go get it developed. And that was a lot of fun. The anticipation of taking the film to go get it developed and getting an actual, 40 or 50 pictures or whatever it was cool. But it took it whenever we started using, SD card cameras and stuff like that, like you're getting so much information off those things that you almost don't have to, like the trail camera's doing all your homework for you. Now, that's not to say that it makes it easy, because I don't think it's ever easy to kill big bucks, but it just takes some of the fun out of it, some of the anticipation of what am I going to see when I go sit in my tree. On the flip side of that, I think trail cameras have made our deer herd better because we know what's there. We get very familiar with these deer, and we selectively try to shoot certain animals. And I think, with bear baiting, it's probably similar for that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you weren't running trail cameras on your bait stations, you might shoot the first decent bear that walks in and gives you an opportunity, right? Because you don't know what's there.
Are you going to give me a chance? Because I'm ready to come out of my seat now. I was with you. I was with you until you said make the deer herd better. So
okay, come on.
So I didn't even know where to start with this. He's like served me up a softball pitch. Man, I've had a couple trail cameras for several years, and I'm just too lazy. I've put them out for deer, and I'll get a few pictures. One time I did get a great picture, like $4, and I don't know. I'm just too lazy. I want to see the pictures, but I don't want to go through the work of putting them up. I use the heck out of them on bear baits because that's kind of half the fun. Half the fun is going in, checking that trail camera, and I've seen lions and I've seen wolves and all that. And honestly, I would never know if Frank the Tank existed. Biggest bear to ever walk the earth, as far as I'm concerned. But how or who, man, when you say make the herd better, I think that's the mentality. I think that's a huge mentality. This whole quality deer management crap you hear. Why? I mean, like, what purpose does it serve? I don't have a problem with people running trail cameras. I really don't. I think it does probably cross the line a little bit when you're sitting, in your house and you're like, oh, that big buck is here, better. Like
that was going to be my next thing I got into is cell cameras, which I would have zero issue if cell cameras went away tomorrow, because I do think cell cameras are an unfair advantage in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So like, if I didn't have trail cameras on my bear baits, how much more exciting would it be to be sitting there and wow, there's a bear that I've never seen before. Instead, that's the bear that I've got 4,000 pictures of over the last 2 weeks. That's that one. And that's that one. I don't want to say that I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't see it as a problem in Idaho. Although, when I run into a trail camera, I feel like when I'm on, like when I'm in national forest and I'm, a mile and a half off the road and I'm like crossing, like I find a wallow and there's a trail camera on it. It does feel a little dirty. I'm not going to lie to you. It's like, somebody just took a picture of me and I'm out here enjoying myself. It does feel wrong that way. But in the grand scheme of things, talking about my personal experience, I don't really have a dog in the fight. But when I hear like outfitters like you're talking about, like Chris Dunn, I mean, talking about pallet loads of cameras and people that's job is actually to run cameras, like that's just sucking the life out of what hunting is supposed to be. And I will argue that with anybody. I mean, that's not what hunting is. It's not about like targeting. Okay, we're gonna get a ton of hate mail if I keep going.
Well, I think there's two sides to every coin, and I try and kind of play both sides of it because there's certain things about both sides of it that make total sense to me.
What is that? Tell me the upside again, because I forget.
Well, the upside and I'm speaking from my own personal opinion. I'm not going to get with running trail cameras. I'm not going to have a 140-inch, 3.5-year-old buck run underneath me and surprise me. And I think a lot of people who maybe don't run cameras and there is a lot of, I mean, you said it a minute ago. If you're not using cell cameras, there's a lot of work that goes into running trail cameras. Lots of gas money, lots of hours spent running around, grabbing SD cards. And,
but why? Why do it?
Why?
Yeah.
So that you're familiar with the deer that are on your property so that you can selectively target certain animals.
But why do you have to selectively target them?
Because that's the animal I want to shoot. I want to shoot the biggest, baddest, oldest deer in the woods.
But if you don't know he's there.
If I don't know he's there, I might shoot the first 4.5-year-old that walks underneath. Just know that, and I'm fixing to flip this around on you. It's no different than on your bear baits. You hunted all year last year for that certain bear, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because you had trail cam pictures of him.
Yeah.
Right?
No, but yeah, but
had you not had trail cam pictures of him, would you have shot the first, decently mature bear that walked into the bait?
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, but that is to my point. Like, that bear that I passed on the last day, I would have shot him and been just tickled. Like, yeah, I took her down to the wire and killed a decent bear. I don't think there's anything wrong. Here you go. I don't think there's anything wrong with not knowing what is out there. I mean, that's what makes it so interesting.
Well, and that's why, and I get to see a little bit of both worlds because my little world here in Texas, I get to be very selective. I've been hunting the same properties for my entire life, the same area my entire life, very familiar with the deer, their habits, what they do. And I've got basically 5 months to hunt. I could sit and be selective as much as I want to be. Now I eat tags because of it sometimes, but on the flip side of this, whenever I go out of state to Kansas or Oklahoma or Colorado or Arizona, New Mexico, whatever, I still get that level of excitement on other hunts that for, my level of excitement here is based on a completely different reason than it is when I go out of state. When I go out of state, I'm looking for opportunity. I'm going to shoot the first thing that gets me excited whenever it walks by. And here, because I can be more selective. I can try and shoot the oldest age class animal on the place. And I just think that we like to paint all this stuff with a broad brush. And I'm sure there's areas in Utah where trail cameras are, helping the harvest considerably. And there's probably other areas in Utah where it, maybe doesn't help that much, or there's areas in places where it's easy to go run trail cameras. You can hop on a 4-wheeler and go get all the cards and it's super simple. Well, then there's maybe other areas of the state where you've got to hike, 5-6 miles in a day to go get your SD cards. So I guess my point is that I think it's a slippery slope to start taking away rides from hunters that we already have. To me, it's different. it's different than, like, say, not letting the crossbow into archery season. Like, that's something that we don't have. We don't want it. Like, I just think it's a slippery slope, no different than gun rights. It's a slippery slope to start saying that, okay, you can only have pistols that hold 10 rounds now. Okay, well, once that ball starts rolling and we start taking things away just a little bit at a time, whether you agree with those things or not, I think it's a very slippery slope, because at some point it may come down that they're taking shit away from you that you don't want taken away. No, it may not be baiting or trail cameras.
I think you're making. I think you're stretching it there. When you're talking about, Second Amendment and crossbows. I know where you're going, and like I said, I don't really have a dog in the fight, but it's basically because it's not an issue in Idaho. I'll tell you, I would not want to argue Chris Rowe on this subject, but I just think that there's so much to be said for being surprised in what's out there, and the fact that or people find the need to harvest the oldest and biggest and most mature animal. You can do that, but I don't think you need trail cameras, because like, if there's a 180 buck out there and you don't know it, what's wrong with that? What if you shot a 140 couple years running, but that 180 is around there that you might just see one time out of season? And again, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to fall on my sword over this. I just see it as not necessary.
No, and I don't think it's necessary either. I think it helps people be more consistent in killing big animals. I think that's a stupid argument to try and make, that it doesn't help you harvest animals, because that's the whole point of it. Otherwise, nobody would do it.
Yeah, and then you have I think the problem, and I'll say right now, I am not familiar what's going on in Utah. I'm not familiar what's going on in Arizona, but anytime you interject money into it, and outfitters equal money, it just gets prostituted. And when Chris Dunn says pallets of trail cameras and people that are paid to run it, trail cameras day in, day out, that's not healthy for what we want to have for generations to come. I guess that's the way to frame it for me.
Yeah. And like I said, I agree with a lot of both sides of this conversation. When I say it's a slippery slope, you start taking things away that are already in the state already accounts for those methods in their harvest numbers, right? So
be careful.
What do you mean?
Well, what about Michigan's increased success rate with crossbows? Same thing, right? You're never going to be able to take them out. And that's my whole point, is you're adding stuff that wasn't already there. And my argument to that is, okay, all right,
you're adding a crossbow is adding something that wasn't already on the landscape.
No, I see.
That would be like adding baiting in Colorado. I don't think that anybody would be for adding baiting. I wouldn't be for adding baiting in Colorado, because that drastically changes the whole kit and caboodle in Colorado if they make baiting legal, right?
Yeah.
In Utah, they've been baiting and they've had trail cameras, and it's,
I didn't know you could bait. I didn't know you could bait in Utah. Really?
You can. Yeah. And I don't know that much about it. I know there's a lot of people who do it and don't really talk about it.
Well, they do that in Idaho too. Yeah, it's not legal, but there's a lot of people that do it and don't talk about it. Like I told you.
I mean, I've talked to guys who hunted over apples for 2 months and not, seen the deer that they're trying to kill. But I mean, that's a totally different conversation. The baiting thing is whatever.
If they didn't have a trail camera, they wouldn't know they weren't killing the deer they were trying to kill.
That's right. But I guess my point is, and I just think it's a dangerous game to play to start. Now, I think we need to limit new technology that's coming in, because obviously there's somewhere you've got to draw a line.
Yeah, right? That's tough to do, man.
I think it is, but I'm not for adding more technology.
Yeah.
I'm also pretty leery about taking technology away.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
that's what's great about states that toe the line. And I brag on Idaho. Idaho toes a line on equipment pretty hard. Montana has always been, and it's a very vague law or rule, but you can't have trail cameras during the season. It's very vague, but I know, some people abide by it. So, at least it's just not,
okay. Well, let me put this comparison. So what is people's biggest, what is the biggest pro to being able to hunt lions or bears or predators with dogs? Top 2 pros.
See where you're going with this, and I'm not going to play.
Is it selectively harvesting older?
Yeah. So you're going to be able to selectively harvest. Right back at you, because with bears and lions, specifically, you got to study them a little bit to come up with a sex. So if you're in a tree, you're going to be able to look at them and say, male, female. Generally you're going to be able to, if she's got kittens or cubs, that type of thing.
Do trail cameras kind of do the same thing, just in a different way?
No, I told you I'm not playing.
I'm just throwing this out. So if you're pro running dogs on lions and bears, because you get to selectively harvest the older, certain sex animals.
I think your analogy
would against trail cameras.
Yeah, your analogy I think would have worked better with baiting. It would have been harder to argue baiting, because you do have time to look at them, and you have time for them to, for the cubs or the kittens type come in. But I know where you're going.
We need to get I wish kind of at this point, wish we had a biologist on here, because I think most biologists that I've ever talked to would agree that if you're consistently harvesting older age class animals out of your herd, that is much better. Like,
is it because those are the ones you want breeding? Boom, mic drop.
Yeah, but I've always been told by biologists that the most the deer that are breeding the most does are your 2 and 3 year olds.
What would that equate to, a teenager?
Yeah. I've always been told that. I've always been told that your 2 and 3 year old bucks are going to breed way more does than your older age class animals. Your older age class animals are going to
that. I got
and
no
that's
clue.
I'm not telling you that this is fact. I'm just telling you what I've been told by people who are allegedly smarter than I am. But I've always had that mindset of way I was brought up, I guess, is I'm not going to shoot a 2 or 3 year old deer if I've got a 5 or 6 year old deer that I could potentially hunt.
If we're together, you better duck, bro, because I'm flat sending it.
That's why I'm sending you to Oklahoma. That's why I'm sending you to Oklahoma.
No, this is a good conversation, and honestly, it's a good conversation. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I just think.
Well, I'll say this: where I draw my line. I would have, and this is coming from somebody who uses cell cameras. I use cell cameras because it's convenient, because it's legal, because it saves me money. I would have no problem if they made cell cameras illegal tomorrow here. Yeah. I have no problem with it. I think that my line is kind of drawn there with the compound bow. My line gets drawn on a site that ranges the target for you. And everybody's line is going to be different. Some people's line might be a rangefinder, period. But I'm just telling you, at some point, we've all got to draw a line somewhere.
We need to, but here's the thing. We need to collectively draw the line. So,
correct.
Yeah, I mean, we need to agree on stuff as a whole. Like, I really, Idaho doesn't allow lighted knocks. As silly as that sounds at this point, 8 years ago, it made sense. to me today, it doesn't matter, but you need to collectively, where I was going with that is I look at that now as such small potatoes when I see the threats like the airbow, the crossbows, and all of this assault in Montana, in Michigan, and Alaska. We need to take little things, and maybe trail cameras are little things. We need to take the little things and put them aside and come together on a bigger enemy.
That's kind of my whole point with this whole thing is we all want to sit and bicker about all this other stuff that is if it's already factored into the way the state is managing their herds, we need to concern. There's way bigger fish to fry in my mind. I had an interesting discussion with somebody the other day, and they said, there's the biggest problem that hunters are going to wind up facing, 100 years from now is there's literally not going to be anywhere to hunt. And, hunting to our great grandkids or great great grandkids may all happen in a high fence. That may be hunting. And that kind of struck me. If you go back and look at and this is not a BHA or public land plug or whatever, but if you go back and look at the amount of wilderness that the United States had back in the early 1900s and how much we have of it now, it is absolutely will knock the wind out of you how much we've lost.
Oh, I see it here locally in the last 25 years.
If that number continues, if that trend continues, like all of this crap that we're arguing about doesn't even matter. Like none of it matters. So I think that as a whole, hunters have a lot bigger fish to fry. Just my opinion, but maybe I'm a simple minded person, but
no,
I try not to get too wrapped up in stuff.
That's legit. I can tell you that my, I'm far more open-minded today than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's just because, through podcasts, listening to podcasts and through my interaction with, guys like you and this podcast, I've certainly, kind of looked at things of a much bigger picture, and hopefully more people do that.
I hope so. And even the crossbow, we talk about the crossbow. Well, there's certain states, I can't remember who I heard say it the other day, but talk about Greg Krause. He can basically shoot as many deer as he wants because there's not enough hunters.
Yeah.
Right. There's not enough people killing deer. So in a state like that, I mean, by all means, if the crossbow means more people bow hunting, then, if that's what the herd dynamics need.
Oh, it's time out.
It comes down to a game management thing, right? And
that's
in
the
Montana,
problem. Yeah, that is the problem. It's a game management thing. But if we want to protect an archery season, then I don't think
Yeah, and that's something I struggle with a little bit is in these states where they need to kill more animals. And Montana is obviously a completely different situation. Some of these states obviously they're not managing herds. They're managing how many freaking people are going to be in there because they're going to kill the amount of animals they want regardless. It's just a matter of how they manage the folks that are going to be in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And all states and all situations are not created equal, I guess is my point. But again, that goes back into that slippery slope thing. You start letting them in certain states. And who was it that said the other day that, it was Brian, that the model for getting the crossbow in has always been to start with letting, disabled people hunt with the crossbow. Well, now we're going to let kids hunt with a crossbow. Well, and eventually it just makes its way in. So again, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
When do you
look at it today, right? So it's actually laughable in Michigan. It starts with handicaps, and then, handicap people. And then, more people will hunt with it. And so now all of a sudden a crossbow is not good enough for handicap people. Now we have to use the airbow. It's like, well, you know what? Let's do claymore mines. Let's let's make claymore mines legal, so that I now have my cell trail camera, right? What do you call them? Cell phone trail cameras.
Yeah, just a cell cam.
And I got det cord, and I clack it off. I don't even have to be there. I just kill the deer.
You can do that for pigs in Texas, believe it or not.
I'm coming down, man. That sounds like a good time to me.
Well, I mean, it's just a different. I mean, that's what I get into with these conversations. Is it's so hard to talk about some of these things because every situation is different. And I actually heard a guy, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, so by all means, go and check this. But basically, since the trail cameras come on the scene in a lot of places, success rates for bow hunters hasn't really changed a whole lot. And this kind of goes back to that. As I said, I'd have to look this up, and maybe we'll pause this recording here in a minute. And
talking out your butt.
I'll look at. I might be. As a matter of fact, we might pause this in a second. I might look that up. But so I don't think that for me personally, trail cams have made my success rates go up. I think it's just made my success rates on older, bigger deer go up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I don't see that.
I don't think my success rates changed at all. It hasn't made my success rate go up.
I don't see that as a positive. Because I just don't see it as a positive. I don't see it as a herd health thing, and I don't see it as a accomplishment thing.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from on the flip side of that. Hang on. Well, let's
oh no, we ain't pausing this. I'm
fixing to Google this.
No, I'm gonna rip you while pull your headphones off so you can't hear. We need an assistant. We need somebody that'll Google. Just like
where's Jamie when you need him?
That's funny.
Okay.
Hey, did you hear Meat Eater bought Phelps game calls?
I did. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about that whole dynamic to have much of an opinion. It seems like Meat Eater's making lots of moves.
It's kind of weird to me. It's kind of I enjoy listening to the guests that Ranella and that gang has on. I really do. I mean, they have a diverse guest list on there, and I don't listen to them all, but some of them are super interesting. So, and I think Steve Ranella is probably a redneck at heart, but man, it makes me uncomfortable the way that that it's gone from an organic supporter of hunting to a corporation. It's kind of weird to me.
Okay, so what do we want to use here? We'll say
whatever numbers pad your angle.
I'm just going to pick one. I'm just going to pick one here. The Ponsagon. When would you say trail cameras really got big?
Oh,
gosh, 2000. It's been in the last 10 years, right?
I would have said maybe 2010. They were kind of
Okay, so in 2010, that's as far back as this is letting me go. On the Ponsagon archery hunt in Utah, the success rate was 61.5%.
Oh, for what?
For archery deer.
Wow,
on the Ponsagon.
That's high. Holy smokes!
Now that's a limited entry unit. It's
okay.
One of the better units in the state.
Gotcha.
We'll check this with multiple units. 2019. Let's see here. Ponsagon archery deer. Okay, it's 82% in 2019. So let's check.
You know what, though? People will say, and rightfully so, that what else has changed? I would say that people were not shooting 100 yards with a compound in 2010.
And here's always my argument to that.
What's
I
that?
think the internet's killed way more animals than anything else has.
I'm not tracking.
Google Earth, Go Hunt,
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Base Maps,
Yeah.
Onyx, forums, getting online to learn how to call elk on YouTube.
We're talking deer here. Stick with the program.
Okay. Listening to a podcast about high country mule deer.
Well, who would do that? That would be stupid.
Yeah. So I that always kind of trips me up a little bit because I think that, again, it's an ease of entry thing. And some people talk about ease of entry in regards to weapons. And I think ease of entry as far as the knowledge that you can get at the click of a button is way more of an issue than a weapon.
Onyx Maps huge. So we're talking 20%?
Yes, 20% difference.
20% difference. It would be interesting to know the quality of animals. I mean,
I would imagine that it's gone up.
Yeah. Yeah. So do we need to get rid of it? So does that change your mind?
I don't know. I would like to find the guy where the guy was quoting this stuff, because he said, and he, again, he could be pulling the numbers that benefit his argument. It's one of those things, but I would be
so you're not on an actual official site there. You're just on.
No, I'm on Utah's.
Gotcha.
Utah's website.
Gotcha.
But it's only letting me go back to 2010 where I can find it here.
Well, as much as I praise the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, I've been in many, many, many meetings to where they can make numbers fit whatever argument they want. That's just, I think they learned that as a freshman in college in biology.
No, and that very well could have been the case with that guy that I heard talking. I just wanted to look it up for myself, because if that's the case, if the harvest numbers haven't changed and it's just improved the quality, trophy quality that has been harvested, I think that's a totally different can of worms.
Yeah.
Because I know for myself, if I'm going on an out-of-state hunt and I'm, I've got time to go put a trail camera out, if I get a picture of a giant buck and whenever I get there, I go and check it and it's got a giant buck on it, I'm hunting that giant buck. I'm committed. Whereas if I wasn't running that trail camera, I'm opportunity hunting.
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot the first thing that makes me happy. And I would probably be just as happy either way. It would make no difference to me. If I go out there and I don't know that there's a 195 and one canyon over and I shoot a 165, well, to me, I just made good on the opportunity that was given to me. Like, I'm happy as a lark with that 165. And I didn't know that 195 was in the next canyon over. But on the flip side of that, if I ran a trail camera and I knew there was a 195 in the next canyon over and I killed him, I'd still be happy. So I'd be happy either way.
Your argument has more holes than a cheese grater.
Well, poke holes in it.
I have been. You won't acknowledge them.
I guess
that's all good stuff, man. I'm just joking around.
I think about both sides. I try to think about both sides of it, and
that's healthy. That really is a way to approach it. And at the end of the day, like I said, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just arguing.
I really don't either in Utah, Arizona, because I'm never going to run a trail camera or bait deer. So if I ever go hunt Utah, I'm going to drive out there and I'm going to go hunt.
Can I change subjects a little bit? You've said baiting a couple of times, and it's something I saw today just stuck in my craw.
What?
I saw this post. It was a drone video of a blind, and it was saying that basically like, hey, we bait deer all year round, but we can't forget about them in the wintertime. And they had written a message in corn on the ground. And
probably not a good look.
No, well, apparently it was, because a big bow manufacturer picked it up and shared the post, as how I saw it. And there's this drone flying over the freaking, the permanent stand, and this big, pile of corn written out in a message and these deer on it. And it was just like, are you shitting me right now? Like
it's probably not good optics.
No.
Well, I mean,
Big Bow manufacturer picture.
It's one thing to, that's probably not a good idea. I mean, having said that, my dad took 30 bags of corn out to all our stuff a couple of days ago and dumped it all out on the ground just to make sure all the deer had plenty to eat, because our deer down here just aren't used to.
Well, hey, you know what?
Like this.
I will support you in that right now. I don't know to what extent they do it now, but in severe winters, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game had a feeding program. When you get these massive snowfalls and just like these abnormal conditions, there had been times where the department, would and sportsmen's group would supplement their feed, and so I'm not going to, there is a time where that might be called for, but there wasn't any snow on the ground. It was yellow lettering in all this corn, I
think I saw the video you're talking about. There was snow on the ground.
Very little, if there was. Was there?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there. But either way, I mean, the act of it doesn't bother me at all. But maybe the way you present it to people is the issue.
Was awesome.
I mean, well, let me ask you this while we're on this topic.
Are we not going to be friends after this podcast?
Oh no, I'm fine. What is your? I know your arguments for bear baiting is game management, which I totally agree with. What is your arguments against shooting deer over bait? Other than you've never done it and you don't like the way it looks.
Man, I wasn't prepared for this. So number one, I'll go back to what you said earlier. If it wasn't necessary, if you didn't have to have it, it was something you didn't do, then it shouldn't be implemented. And that sounds horrible. You caught me flat-footed, 100%.
Good.
It's supposed to be hunting. It's not supposed to be attracting them in. It's supposed to be hunting them in their normal patterns.
Well, then go throw all your 55-gallon drums away.
Nope.
Go. Nope. Pattern your bears.
Nope.
So what's the difference?
Bastard.
Yeah, I mean, I
struggle. I struggle with it. I struggle with legitimizing bear baiting more than I struggle with legitimizing baiting for ungulates. Bear baiting to me is about predator management. It's for me, it's about the department being able to manage the numbers of predators to affect the ungulates. So it's easier for me to defend that than it is to defend baiting. I mean, baiting deer, I don't want to go up in in the mountains in all of these national forests and have to figure out where the bait piles should be. I want to figure out where the travel corridors should be, because it's not about attracting those animals to an area. It's about understanding how they travel. One is days of field to hunt an ungulate, and the other is affecting a management program for the department.
I'll say that baiting deer in Texas, you're not attracting anything that's not already there, because everybody around you is doing the same shit.
Well, so, what if nobody was doing it?
If nobody was doing it, I'd be fine with it. I've said this 100 times over. I would be perfectly content if baiting in Texas became illegal tomorrow. It's not going to happen, but if it did, I know that the people who put in the work and the people who put in the time are still going to get the results. But whenever there's 6 feeders down my east fence line, I'm going to have a couple on my side. It's just, it's the way it is. And now you can draw a line in the sand and not hunt over them if you want. But
oh no, yeah, I know. I get what you're saying there. But why would
from?
So what would be the argument for a state like Idaho? Say, take Idaho. Like why should Idahoans bait deer or elk?
I don't think they should.
No, yeah.
It's not already on the landscape. It's not a part of the hunting culture. It's not a part of. I don't think they should. And I used the example with Colorado earlier. I think it would drastically, because number one, if deer haven't been hunted over bait in their entire lives, that is not, and I'm not a scientist, it's not programmed into their DNA or whatever. They're not smart to it. Well, you see it at some places in, I'll use, for example, throwing alfalfa hay out in Topo, Texas's front yard. They're not accustomed. They're not smart to it. They come like that's not how baiting deer works in places where they've been baited for years and years and years and years. It's very similar to how I imagine baiting bears is. They are very smart to it. If you're going, it takes a lot more than just dumping a bag of corn out and going and hanging a tree stand to kill a big buck on bait.
You know,
in a place that they've been baited for.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
They're conditioned to it.
Yeah.
So you go to Colorado right now and go dump a round bale alfalfa hay in the middle of an area where they've never seen a bale of alfalfa hay. There's going to be 200 deer eating on it. And it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah. And that's what's super frustrating in a place like Idaho, because you go into North 40 here, and there'll be pallets and pallets and pallets of, deer blocks and sweet feed and dry cob. And it's not for livestock. It's all during hunting season. And you talk
people
about
baiting on private land.
Well, yeah, not always private land. I mean, my friend's a game warden, and it's not always private land. You talk about the height of laziness. I mean,
oh, absolutely, and I don't disagree at all.
And let me if it's against before I get crucified for that. So like, I'm not going to do it like everybody else. I'm going to go grab 100 pounds of grain and dump it out so that my 10-year-old gets a quote unquote experience, or my wife gets to shoot a deer, or I get to shoot a deer or an elk. I mean, that just frosts my ass.
No, and I think that's I think that's something different altogether. If you're baiting deer in a spot where it's illegal to bait deer, they're not conditioned to being baited all the time like they would be somewhere like Texas or Oklahoma or wherever, Utah. Those people should be prosecuted at the full extent of the law, because they're undermining everybody else's experience in the woods.
Let me ask you this now, and now I'm going to play the devil's advocate. What if I've got 20 acres, 40 acres, and I've got apple trees on them?
I mean, were they there originally? Did you plant them? I mean, it's like hunting over a food plot. I mean, it's, whenever I had Bill down here, and that was his first experience hunting anywhere around bait or anything like that. And he was like, I, have had my own thoughts about it. There's a long time that growing up that I thought if you killed a buck over a pile of corn that you were, a piece of trash. And the reason being, and the reason that people think along those lines, is because in most places it's illegal. Or in those places where people think along those lines, it's illegal, which I don't disagree with. If you're baiting deer in a state where it's illegal, you are a piece of trash.
Okay. Okay. So what about hunting 100 acres of milo, wheat, oats?
It's no different than hunting over a bait pile. It's no different. Here's here's something
this wasn't what this podcast was planned to be. Just so anybody listening.
And okay, you've got 100 acres of milo. You've got a small, skinny strip of timber that runs alongside it. And then you've got CRP or some kind of bedding right there adjacent to it. Well, where are you going to hunt at? You're going to hunt in between the CRP and the milo and that little thin stretch of timber. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. And the same things apply to hunting over bait. You can hunt right over the bait if the conditions are just perfect. If the conditions are right and a buck is vulnerable, you can hunt right over the bait. But if you could figure out where that buck's calling home and catch him in between, not only is it easier to kill him because he's not as keyed up, but you're still playing the same game. The same game, if you plant a 5-acre food plot with turnips and clover and everything else in it, in my mind, that is no, because I do both. We plant food plots, we run bait stations, we do all this. In my mind, there is no difference whatsoever.
No difference between baiting
a food plot and a bait pile
or food plot. What about agriculture? Nope. What about
I think it's the same. It's the same thing. You're trying to figure out where they're bedding, where they're eating, and you're trying to kill them in between those two places. If you're hunting on the edge of a 100-acre cut cornfield and this buck is bedding in a certain spot, you've been watching him with the glass for 2 weeks before season, and he uses this trail with this wind direction, and he pops out in this spot. You're hunting over a freaking bait pile. You're hunting over a really big bait pile, and you can sit. I don't have the luxury of being able to sit back and watch a 100-acre ag field and figure it out where this deer likes to come out. I don't have that luxury. You just have to come see the country and the terrain. I don't have that. Having said all of this, there's places in Texas where when the feeder goes off, 15 deer run out. There's places like that, but that's not the norm. That's just, I've sat and watched a feeder go. The only purpose a feeder serves, like an electronic spin cast feeder, is it saves you money because you're not dumping piles of corn out for raccoons and everything else to mow down. It saves you money. It drops a controlled amount of corn, just enough to get the deer through the night and into the next morning. Then the next morning it throws a little bit more down. In a place where deer are baited all the time, they're used to feeders, they're used to hearing that noise. The feeder's not going to go off and deer run out. Just not going to happen. You're not training the deer to come to the feeder when the feeder goes off. It doesn't work that way. I'm not saying it doesn't work that way in some specific little microcosms, but it doesn't work that way everywhere.
Well, I will pile on to the fact, you said earlier, it's a slippery slope. And I certainly have a more open mind today than I did 5 years ago. But as a whole, we as bow hunters, certainly need to collectively draw a line. And I'm not saying baiting is part of the issue, but just equipment in general. We need to be able to stand together, and it shouldn't be, when an attack comes, like in Michigan with the air bow, it shouldn't be that a group has 1,000 members, 1,000 bow hunters. It ought to be tens of thousands, because it's ridiculous to let minute details like, here's one that fires my ass up, is when I hear a stickbow guy, and I just saw it recently, we're having this discussion about, we need to band together against the air bow, and this guy just comes in out of freaking nowhere, like some drunk dude in a bar coming out of the back corner, throwing haymakers and saying, well, what about stick bows? We shoot real bows and this crap. Man, you need to put down that freaking ideology and understand that there is a hierarchy in the equipment. that's not the right way to say it, but we need to pick our battles because if we don't, we're going to all fall.
Well, and I want to say too that a lot of these points that I've made that Rob's poked a bunch of holes in, it's not necessarily my opinion. I'm trying to voice both sides of an argument.
No, that's cool.
And where I stand on a lot of these issues is if baiting's legal and it has been for years and years and years, leave it.
Yeah.
Just leave it. It's not, just leave it. If baiting is illegal in your state, leave it illegal. That's I appreciate being able to go out of state and hunt different ways with, I don't want to say handicaps, but I appreciate the way different states are structured. I appreciate the different experiences that allows. Hunting here is a way different experience than it is going elsewhere. But, we sit and talk about all this stuff, and Rob makes a good point that a lot of this stuff is kind of small potatoes compared to most of the stuff that we actually probably need to be more concerned with. And, I'm a big advocate of, if the crossbow's not legal, leave it illegal. If the airbow's not legal, like that's one of those things. It's new technology coming in, and we need to nix that shit. That needs to be at the forefront of bow hunters, compound, and traditional hunters alike, because it threatens both of us, and that's something everybody needs to get on the same page with. And
exactly. We could be standing around a fire, having an adult beverage, discussing the merits of expanded broadheads. Again, I'm talking about Idaho. Expandable broadheads, lighted nocks, all this stuff that Idaho has, towed the line on. But when it comes down to it, there is we can argue about that stuff around fire having a beer, but when the real attacks come, we need to be able to put that stuff aside and take up arms and stand shoulder to shoulder.
I agree. Division is a dangerous thing, and creating the division within hunters is dangerous. And like you said the other day, you said something about, and this made a lot of sense to me. That were the Montana crossbow thing coming through that podcast with Brian. People are saying, well, you're alienating hunters. You're causing division between hunters because all the crossbow people in Montana can't hunt. And your argument to that, which I think is 100% accurate, is what crossbow people? The crossbow isn't legal in Montana. There isn't crossbow people in Montana. There's not, that's not something that's been on the landscape. That's not something that's part of Montana's hunting heritage. So there's, like, that argument is there's no leg to stand on there. And that kind of goes back to it circles back around to everything we've been talking about. Baiting is part of Texas hunting heritage. It just is. And taking that away is, in my opinion, it's just a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
So,
and anytime they're created, whether you're talking a crossbow season in Montana or a baiting season in Idaho, anytime something like that's created, it doesn't benefit hunting. It benefits a manufacturer. It benefits a corporation. It's all about money. It's not about, it's not about betterment of hunting. So, dude, do you realize we've been talking for like an hour and 40 minutes?
Have we really?
No joke. When we started this, I'm like, dude, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, we went down all kinds of rabbit holes. I don't know. I hope people don't hate me after this, but
no, dude,
I just
no, I think it's good.
Again, I think it's good to when you're sitting and having discussions like this. I think it's good to take a step back, and you need to take a step back and listen to what the other side has to say. And I've, try to do that as best as I can. Now you still got to fact check people. Cause like I said, that guy earlier talking about the harvest numbers haven't really changed. I don't know how true that is. You have to go and look it up. People can pick and choose where they get their information from or what numbers they use. But
you said fact check, not fat check, right? Because I'd be offended by that.
Yeah, fact check. Fact.
Well, you know what? There's, we like earlier, we said earlier, you and I both kind of, we're after the end goal. You know, we still have the same moral compass, but we certainly come from opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. And I don't know. I've just always, I need to pay more attention to, I need to pay more attention to things because I've always gotten in the rut of this is just how I hunt. This is how I hunt here. It's how I've always hunted. And, it's good to take a step back and kind of, try and think a little bit broader and, understand some other viewpoints. But
dude, you and me both, man. I've lived with blinders on for decades. It's just the way that Idaho does it. It's the way that I do it, and it's always been right. And like I said earlier, man, it's the podcasts and it's social media that has kind of broadened my horizons. And there's a lot of crap and trash out there, but made me really think, like, you know what? Maybe mine's not the only way.
Yeah, it's everybody does things a little different. There's nothing wrong with that. It's what makes us individuals, I guess.
This is like a Zoom bro hug.
No, I'm not ready for that.
Good answer. I'm glad you said that.
Don't be gay, bro.
Oh, right on, man. Well, it's like the first time I ever did just a BS session. It's the first time. I think it's the first time I've done that. So I don't know. Downloads might sink like the freaking Titanic this week.
Oh, I'm sure that there's going to be a demographic of people who's less fond of me after this, but that's okay.
I think it was a good discussion.
All right. Well, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, man. Good talk. We've got a big week coming up. So this is tomorrow, Sunday. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 podcasts scheduled for next week, and it will go uphill from this one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. All right, man. You good?
Yep.
All right. Roger out.